For water. You get the gist.
People get irate about it and an airline ticket, but in healthcare, we've kind of come to accept it as, oh, that's just normal. And part of the reason I wrote the book is to say that's not normal in other countries.
Hospitals do this through a complex system of codes. New patient visit, 9920105. Emergency room visit, 9928185. Burn due to water skis on fire, B9107. Yeah, there really is a code in case your water skis burst into flames. You know, as they do. Different codes mean different prices. Just take the codes for a laceration. You'll be charged a different amount depending on the size of the cut, where it's at on your body, and how complex the suture is.
Coding is...
Which one of those makes sense as to, like, them changing the price?
The room, like emergency room.
Well, no, going back to those, just the size of the cut. Or the different types of cuts.
As they do. Different codes mean different prices. Just take the codes for a laceration. You'll be charged a different amount depending on the size of the cut, where it's at on your body, and how complex the suture is.
The size.
Could be the size.
Where it is.
I would have said where not necessarily where it is, because if the cut's on my leg versus on my arm, the size matters, and then I would argue that the complexity of the suture would matter too. But if it's the same type of cut on my arm as it is on my leg,
Then why are you charging more?
they should be the same, right?
Coding historically was about tracking diseases, right? But in the US, pretty much alone, how you code a patient interaction is a billing construct. Again, something that had scientific and medical purpose gets translated into a business asset.
Every day we spend hours going through check boxes, typing notes, documenting things that we're supposed to document for billing purposes that we really don't think improves patient care. And the more that we spend time with computers, the more that we spend time billing, that leaves a lot less time for face-to-face interaction with our patients. And that's why most of us went into medicine in the first place.
There are benefits to taking down all that data. In theory, it can lead to better results in the long run. Doctors may find things later that they didn't catch in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's just not working in the US. Some doctors say they're concerned about malpractice lawsuits, so they order more tests to protect themselves. Bills keep getting longer, and health outcomes aren't always getting better. The American Hospital Association declined to comment on criticisms of the current hospital system. But they do have a fact sheet explaining that hospitals often don't get paid the full amount that they bill. The AHA claims 2/3 of community hospitals lose money when the government pays Medicare and Medicaid bills, and that, quote, the hospital payment system itself is broken. And of course, a big part of that healthcare spending is on drugs and supplies, both of which can be hard to get insurance to fully cover.
Oh, thank you, Luca. Can you show us what's in that box? Are these your ostomy bags? So we get 10 per box, and that lasts me about 2.5 days. What they're currently charging me is $1,178 this month for those boxes. Thank you.
Let's talk about one of the biggest issues weighing on the pharma industry right now, and that is drug prices.
From $18 a tablet jumping to $750 a tablet, a 4,000% in just 24 hours.
Do you feel badly about what's happening?
No.
That guy has such a punchable face.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh my goodness! Every time I see him, I want to punch him.
Is he still around?
He's in jail right
Really?
now. That tells you how good of a person he was.
What do you do?
Martin Scarelli. That's his name. Martin
Did
Scarelli.
you do something like a Wu-Tang album or something like that?
Yes,
What do you do?
he bought a bootleg Wu-Tang album. So what he did to deserve all this bad rep, he took this malaria drug that was being used to treat malaria in Africa, and it was selling for like $15 a dose. It was relatively cheap. He bought the patent of that malaria drug, and he jacked up the price 5,000%. Only because he could. And that's what they're questioning him on, right? Okay, I guess this is assuming this is the malaria drug, right? $1,350 to $750
say no, he doesn't feel bad.
I think he.
Yeah, he doesn't feel bad.
What is it?
Just wanna- Oh.
Who was he selling the drug to?
Huh?
Who was he selling it to?
People in Africa, like the benefit people, just the general public. So if the nonprofits that are delivering this drug to people in Africa want to buy this drug to use it, they now would have to pay $750.
That's why he's in jail?
No, because that was legal. That's legal under our system.
So why did he?
He's in jail for insider trading.
Oh.
What's that?
That's when you have insider information that's non-public and you trade on it.
Oh.
That's illegal because it creates an unfair system in the stock market.
Don't they already do that, but just don't get caught on that?
There may be some of it, but again, you do have to get caught for it. Martha Stewart went to jail for insider trading.
Oh,
But she went to like a white collar jail. It was like a spa. Huh?
It's white collar jail.
It's not, it's like more of like a, they kind of home arrest, but you're on this, you can't leave the property, but it's not like your county lockups, like with hard jail cells and hard criminals in there. It's called white collar because the people that go there are typically ones that commit more business related crimes rather than drug or physical assault type crimes.
how does the like judges decide to go there?
Depends on your crime. And I guess your money, to be frank. Right? I mean, Martha Stewart, pretty successful, went to a white collar. You know that the woman from Full House?
Oh yeah, because
Who-
her daughter, she paid for
Yeah, who
his
paid to get her daughter into Stanford or
college.
so?
Oh, Lori Loughlin?
Yeah, that's her. I think she's going to a white collar crime jail too.
They should send them to normal prison. Or jail.
So in fact,
Make
we're
it
reaching out to the patient tonight.
We've all heard about Martin Shkreli raising the price of Daraprim, but what about colchicine or epinephrine? The prices of those drugs have both skyrocketed because one company has control over it. The response is usually the same. The companies need to raise prices to fund the research and development for the next drug.
For the most part, high-priced drugs have patent protection from the government. They pretty much have a monopoly in a market.
So, what was the reason that they gave for the reason the high price of drugs?
So they can pay for more research.
Pay for more research and development. What I'm really curious to see is with COVID, remdesivir, you know how that's been in the news a lot? Guess who paid for that research and development? We did. Taxpayers. Because the government gave the company money to develop this. So I'm really curious as to see what the company that owns remdesivir is going to charge consumers to get that treatment. I just can't wait for the data on their hospital bills to come out.
They're probably not gonna charge a lot on the drug itself, just giving you the drug is what they're gonna charge you on.
I don't know, because if taxpayers paid for the drug, that means their costs to develop the drug are really low, right? Which means they could, every dollar that they charge consumers on the back end of things is more profit for the company. And so companies are driven to maximize profit. So I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm skeptical.
So very often you have someone who needs a specific cancer drug. There's one company that makes it. They're the only company that makes it. No one else can make it. And since it might be absolutely necessary for your life, they're in a position where they can charge anything they want.
How is that possible? Well, there's not really anyone stopping it.
Once people realized you can get away with this stuff, it became a race to the top.
It's also important to remember that many of these costs are adding up during a very stressful time. Sometimes the people paying the bills aren't even conscious.
The analogy I often make is firefighters when it comes to burning house. So when your house is on fire, your family's inside, you don't want to be sitting there negotiating with the firefighters, oh, you know, I'm willing to pay you $300,000, they want $400,000. That's not how you want to do this.
And I really like that analogy because after a firefighter or a fire team puts out a fire on your house, does the homeowner get a bill from the fire department for, hey, this is how much water we use, this is our land. Like, do they do that?
No.
No, it's considered a public service, right? And so our taxpayers or tax dollars already fund it, and therefore we don't get a bill for it. It's a time of an emergency, do it, right? Not so with medicine.
And often healthcare does have that character.
Medical emergencies are chaotic, and health insurance is confusing. There are HMOs, PPOs, deductibles, copays, and premiums to try and make sense of. You'd think that if people are insured, they shouldn't have to pay that much out of pocket. But that's not always the case. Not every doctor accepts every insurance plan, and some hospitals have staff employed by multiple third-party companies.
Okay, I'm gonna go back real quick where they talked about all those names.
And health insurance is confusing. There are HMOs.
Okay, HMOs, we're not gonna go into that specific type of health insurance plan. HMOs and PPOs are different types of health insurance, and it changes on who pays.
PPOs, deductible.
Okay, we haven't talked about deductible. Okay, so a deductible. We talked about premiums yesterday. Okay. A deductible is what you have to pay before health insurance kicks in. Okay, so I pulled out my health insurance card that I have through the school. Okay, and my deductible here, I'm just going to write out exactly what it says, and we'll talk about what they mean. Okay, so my deductible is, what do you think it is? What do you think those mean? Individual and family, yeah. So my deductible is which one?
The
top one.
The top one, $2,000. Okay, so what that means is that during the year, from January 1st to December 31st, any medical bills that I have, I pay the first $2,000. Okay, so if the medical bills only get to $1,500 during the course of 1 year, insurance isn't paying anything out. Okay, at December 31st, it resets. So if I paid $1,999 in medical bills up to December 31st. On January 1st, my deductible is back down to, or the amount that I paid toward my deductible is back down to zero. Right, so I have to spend another $2,000 before insurance pays. Okay. Yeah, so one way to increase your premium to where your premium, what you're paying for insurance each month, one way that will go higher is if you have a lower deductible, right? At a $2,000 deductible, what are the odds, or is it more likely or less likely that insurance will have to pay out as compared if we were to compare it to like a $500 deductible? Which one, $500 or $2,000, would the insurance company be more likely to pay out? $500. Because I would meet that deductible a lot sooner than the $2,000 deductible, right? So because the deductible is lower, and it's a higher likelihood that the insurance company would have to pay out, the premium that I'm going to pay for that insurance policy is going to be higher. Insurance companies do not like to pay out because they're for profit, right? So if they have to pay out, does that increase their cost or their revenue? Increase their cost. So they don't want to pay out. They're going to fight you tooth and nail to pay out. Okay? if I had a family plan on this, my deductible would be $4,000. That's a lot. That's a pretty high deductible, right? But by having a high deductible, you can lower your premium. And so you lower the cost that you have to pay every month.
I should have a question. So you know how yesterday talking about how to have a baby in the United States would be $10,000?
Uh-huh.
Would it be less to just do the midwife option?
I do not know how, I think it would be less.
It
I
is
don't,
less.
I don't know how much less.
Okay. But it's still expensive because some midwives drive like to your house.
Yeah. One of my friends, ended up, his wife is a midwife. They live, where do they live now? They used to live in Indonesia because he was oil and gas. But when COVID hit, they moved from Indonesia to Louisiana. So now they have had to deal with 4 hurricanes this year.
That's the worst place to move.
No.
During this time.
Yeah, yeah. But she's a midwife in that area. I could ask her how much she charges. But yeah, deductibles.
Bulls, copay.
Okay, copays. So a copay is what you're going to pay. It doesn't go toward your deductible. It doesn't go toward this $2,000, but you pay it with your insurance. Or not, sorry, you pay it with your doctor visits. Okay. For example, if I go to the doctor's office, okay, I pay $30 per doctor's visit just to talk to the doctor. If the doctor does nothing else, it's $30. If the doctor runs x-rays or scans, I pay that in addition to the $30, and that goes toward my deductible. So I pay the first $2,000 of all those procedures. Okay. If I go to urgent care, right? So this is the doctor's office. This is your primary physician. If I do urgent care, I'm paying $75 per visit for urgent care. And then if they do x-rays and anything like that, that's additional, okay? If I go see a specialist, it's $60. So if I go see a cardiologist or an orthopedic surgeon, I'm paying $60 for that visit. Okay. And then it doesn't say it on here. I don't think it does. No. Okay. But if I were to go to the emergency room, what do y'all think? Is it going to be more expensive or less expensive? Yeah. Emergency room care is the most expensive type of care that we have. Based on and I wasn't on this insurance last time I went to the emergency room. I went because I was playing intramural softball in Lubbock. And that's fun, by the way, because the wind is blowing really hard, and I pitch in intramural softball. So sometimes I have to throw the ball at the batter and have the wind curve it in. It's kind of fun. But I was rounding the bases, and my third base coach told me, go home. And so I'm running home. And the ball gets to the catcher right before I get there, and he's covering home plate. What do you do in baseball when huh? What? You run him over. In baseball, you do. Actually, they've changed that rule recently. But this is intramural. You're supposed to play to a lesser extent, right? Like less intensity?
Yeah.
I didn't. I collided with that catcher. I mean, you're gonna block me? I'm gonna run right into you. Well, something hit my shin. And my friends that were watching the game, they told me later that they heard a snap on my shin. I was out of the game. I could not put any weight on this leg. I iced it a little bit. I tried getting back there and pitching. We lost the game because I wasn't pitching and the backup kept on walking people. But it hurt so bad. Like I used my back to get back to my car as a cane. Okay? And then the car that I was driving at the time is a stick shift.
No.
So I had to use my right leg to get home. And throughout the entire time going home, I was crying because it hurt so bad. Hurt so bad that I could not even get to sleep that night. I tried elevating it, putting ice on it. I was up till 2 in the morning in the pain because of the pain. Finally, I had some leftover pain medication from my knee surgery, and I took that, and that allowed me to go to sleep. Well, the next morning, I decided, okay, I'm going to the emergency room for it, right? That visit cost me $750 just for the visit.
Jesus.
Then they gave me a pair of crutches. I paid for that. That was like $150.
You should have been gone to urgent care.
I should have, but you know, when you're in so much pain, you really you don't take the time to research the different costs. All right, and then they gave me a new prescription of hydrocodone for the pain, and that was in another thing. So I think for drugs, my copay is somewhere. It gives me 3 prices on my copay for drugs. So my RX copay is either $15, $40, or $75. Okay, and that depends on whether the drug is a brand name drug or it's a generic or what type of drug it is. Okay, so I have copays that I pay for both drugs and for doctor's visits and emergency rooms, and none of that goes toward my deductible. Like additional expenses after the copays will go toward the deductible. Okay, and so if you want to lower your premiums, increase your deductible amount. If you want a lower deductible, you have to increase your premiums. Okay, it's painful.
Dynamics to try and make sense of. You'd think that if people are insured, they shouldn't have to pay that much out of pocket. But that's not always the case. Not every doctor accepts every insurance plan, and some hospitals have staff employed by...
Oh, and that's the other thing. All of those prices are for doctors in my insurance network. Okay? If I go out of network, I'm not covered as much on here. So if you stay in your healthcare network, you're not going to be paying as much. If you go out of network, you're going to be paying more. Here's the really crappy thing. You go to a hospital that's in network. The doctor working on you in the hospital may be an out-of-network doctor. How do you know? You don't. So you'll get a bill from the hospital, and that will show an in-network bill. But then you'll also get a bill from the doctor who worked on you, and that would be an out-of-network bill. And so one of the big complaints about our healthcare system is people getting these surprise bills. When COVID first happened, or was first building up here in the States, there was a man in Florida who went to go get tested because he felt ill. He then got a surprise medical bill for $3,000 for the cost of the COVID test.
I thought they just stick something in your nose.
Yeah. It was $3,000 at the beginning. Right? Now, of course, that made national news because it's $3,000 for a test. It's crazy. But what effect do you think that had on the rest of the American public?
Don't get tested.
Don't get
Too much
tested.
money.
Yeah. And do we want people to get tested during a pandemic?
Yes.
Yes. So if we have an incentive program or a disincentive to get tested, COVID spreads more rapidly. Thank you, America.
You make me
By
not want to be a
multiple-
doctor anymore.
Well, you have to be, and if you want to afford those 3 cars.
Okay, never mind.
third-party companies. So one trip to the ER could get you 5 different bills, and your insurance might only cover 1.
I actually stopped taking ambulances, really. We had one really, really close call where Luke was pretty unstable.
And ambulances also fall into that. Some ambulances that you call maybe in network, some may be out. You don't know.
And things were going south, and we drove him to the hospital instead. I sat in the back and slowly increased the oxygen the entire ride, and my husband was driving 120 miles down 95 because
Husband putting other lives in danger because they're avoiding an ambulance ride? Yeah, driving 125 down a highway is not safe.
it was faster and cheaper for us to do it that way. When you're being slammed with those type of bills, like, you just can't incur any extra costs. And I'm a nurse, so I figured I was in the back seat, and if I had to do chest compressions, I was gonna do chest compressions.
Today, nearly 30 million Americans are uninsured. That's down from roughly 55 million in 2010 before the Affordable Care Act. But it's still a higher percentage than countries like France, Japan, and Israel. The insurance companies are supposed to be negotiating their prices lower because in a lot of cases, they're ultimately the ones footing the bill. But as we've seen over the last few decades, that cost can still get passed on to consumers.
Health costs can contribute to all sorts of inequalities in society. So people who are poor or middle class even, they're just one serious illness away from bankruptcy.
So where do we go from here?
Once there's all this money sloshing around in a system, there's this kind of pile-on effect where everyone wants to grab their bit of this huge pot of money. And now what we have as we're trying to take it back and reduce costs is everyone is desperately clinging to their piece of the pie.
What are you doing? What are you doing, you big goof?
Of course, healthcare costs have the potential to impact your personal budget if you're paying for insurance or when you get sick, but it also impacts the country's bottom line. The government currently spends more than $1 trillion on healthcare, and the CBO expects spending on Medicare and Medicaid to double in the next 10 years. That's not just because the population is getting older. A large part of that spending will come from healthcare getting more expensive. There's no magic solution as to what to do next, but people are at least starting to think about the steps it'll take to turn things around.
One is having a lot more transparency. Both doctors and patients and their families should have an understanding of roughly what it's going to cost them.
Alternative route, having some sort of government manufacturer.
Okay, so we hear a lot about with healthcare. Was that you or the ceiling?
What?
The crackling?
That wasn't bad.
Okay, I was like, what is going on up
I
there?
would hope so.
Well, sometimes, they turn on the heat.
Oh yeah, and
And
then
then
they'll go.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things we hear a lot with our healthcare system is let's open it up to the free market. Sound familiar? Let the free market. Yeah. Okay. The free market only works when consumers, 1, have choices, and 2, know the price that they're paying. Right? Because if they know the price that they're paying, can they shop around? And does the shopping around effect put a downward pressure on prices? Yeah. Right now in our system, though, we don't have that. Right? If you're in an emergency, do you really have much of a choice of where you go? No. In fact, if an ambulance picks you up, they're going to take you to the closest hospital, whether that hospital is in your health insurance network or not. So you're going to get stuck with whichever bill it is because of no choice. Okay. And then with all the hidden bills, you should be able to go to the doctor or go to the ER or urgent care and come away with 1 bill. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Coming away with 1 bill of what you owe? When I had that the deal on my shin, and all it was a deep bone bruise. It was nothing broke or anything. But I would get 1 bill from the hospital, pay that. couple weeks later, I'd get another bill for the same procedure. And I'm like, wait a second, I already paid for this. And then a couple weeks later, a third bill. All right. And it's kind of, they have you over the barrel because didn't know that this was going to be charged. And I'd already gotten the service for it. So there was really no option. You had to pay it.
Manufacturing facility so that you could say to Strakelis, okay, you want to do that? Guess what? Next week we're going to be on the market and we're going to be selling this stuff for $1 or $2 a pill.
Peekaboo. Ready, peekaboo. There is a very, very strong possibility that Luca will need a second lung transplant before he's 10 years old. He's already had one. They will list him for a second, and right now the policies in our healthcare system is they do not list him for a third. So I do not know if I will see my child ever hit his teens or 20s. It's pretty scary. Like, I don't know if I'll ever see him get married. It's just so unknown.
And there was one of the things, you know, what she's talking about there is her health insurance will pay for she'll still get the $3 million. She has $3 million in medical bills. But so her insurance will partly cover a second transplant, but if her son needs a third, they will not put him on the list for a third transplant. So essentially they are saying he is going to do what? Die.
What disease does he have?
She said it at the very beginning.
I think they should change the rule for the children, that's different.
Well,
Or anyone really with that condition.
Back when the Affordable Care Act was being debated in Congress, I remember a lot of critics talking about the idea that the government was going to have death panels. Does that sound familiar?
Maybe.
Okay, that the government would have death panels and you'd have a government bureaucrat saying whether or not you deserve that treatment.
Oh.
Okay, thing is, even our insurance companies already serve as death panels, saying that, hey, they're not going to cover this. Pre-existing conditions. What would happen to it? Let's say we're starting all over, and we start with, y'all each run your own insurance company, okay? And there are no rules and regulations. What type of people do you want in your plan?
People who don't get injured a lot or not sick.
Okay, so the healthy, okay, the non-risk takers, healthy, non-risk takers, and do you want older people or younger people? Young.
Older.
Why would you want older?
Huh?
Yeah, yesterday he said you're more likely to get injured.
Yeah, when you're older, you're more likely to require cost. When you're young, that's one of the reasons why a lot of young people don't feel like they need health insurance, because they feel invincible, right? Nothing's ever going to happen to me. Millennials went through it. Generation Z's going through it too. Tide Pod Challenge. Okay. So you start off, you want the young and the healthy, right? Now, and with that, you keep your premiums low, right? With young and healthy? Okay. Now, I'm the government, and I say, hey, you must accept people with pre-existing conditions. You have to accept people that are smokers. You have to accept people that have diabetes or that have a history of heart disease. What are you going to do to your premiums?
Raise it.
You're going to raise your premium.
On everyone or just those people?
Well, to do it just on those people, you'd have to require your consumers to get annual physicals. That's harder to do. And so you would typically raise them on everybody. Okay? What if I then said, okay, your plans must cover this baseline number of procedures, right? No more skeleton plans that cover barely anything. You must cover at least these procedures. What's going to happen to your premiums? If I require you to cover more procedures than you used to,
It's gonna go up.
they're going to go up. Okay? These are things that the Affordable Care Act did. One of the famous missteps of Obama was saying, if you like your plan, you can keep it. You remember him saying that?
No.
Okay. He did. If you like your plan, you can keep it. Well, it's kind of a little lie there, because the Affordable Care Act set a standard for plans, and at the time that it was passed, there were a lot of health insurance plans that fell below that standard. They were collecting premiums, but they weren't delivering any type of quality of care. So the Affordable Care Act made those plans illegal, like dropped them. Okay? So because the standard rose, if you had a plan that already met with that standard, you got to keep it. But if you didn't, you got dropped and you had to go out and shop for another one, which tended to be more expensive. Right? So one of the things that we saw with the Affordable Care Act is premiums going up because pre-existing conditions had to be covered. So you raise your premium, and you couldn't provide a trash plan, a skeleton plan. You had to provide a plan that covered more. That caused you to raise your premiums too. Okay? What if I, the government, require everybody in America to buy insurance, and so now you have a bunch of new customers? So you have a lot more people. What would that do to your insurance? And included in your, like, a lot more people means all the young and healthy people that didn't want to sign up for health insurance previously. What's that going to do to your premiums?
Go.
Would it go up?
It'll go down because they don't get injured that much, right?
If you require all the young and healthy people to buy into a health insurance plan that otherwise wouldn't, it would lower the premiums. But it could also cause it to go up if you got a bunch of sicker people.
That's what I was thinking, you know, more people, probably more
Yeah.
probability of people getting sick, so just raise
It could, but it also could work to lower it, because you get the people that wouldn't want health insurance to buy health insurance, so it drops it. Okay. The bell's off, or did I didn't hear a bell?
They're decorating the door. Well, we were supposed to be
It was just
doing.
loud.
3 minutes. In 3 minutes, you can. Yeah. So, with the individual mandate from the Affordable Care Act, that was designed to help lower the premiums. But recently, within the past couple of years, was the individual mandate repealed.
Yes.
Yeah. And here's the problem with the individual mandate. The tax penalty for the individual mandate was lower than the current premiums for health care. So if you're an individual who doesn't want to buy health insurance, and you feel like you're being forced to buy it, and if you don't buy it, you get hit with this tax penalty, you're going to compare the tax penalty to the cost of premiums, right? And you're going to choose which one is higher or lower? Lower. So you're going to choose the tax penalty on that. For Obamacare to have been better engineered, they should have made the tax penalty above the premium level to force people to make that economic choice of premiums are the better option and over time, as people did that, the premiums should have lowered. But they didn't do that, and so it's that. But recently, the individual mandate was repealed. It was taken. The Congress repealed it. So now, are people more likely to keep, now that they don't have to have insurance, are they likely to keep their insurance or get rid of it? Get rid of it. What's that going to do to your premium costs? And who's likely to get rid of it? The healthy or the sick? The healthy. Okay. So if the healthy people start getting rid of their insurance, what's going to happen to your healthcare costs? It's going to go up. It's going to shoot up. And that's what we've seen. Since the individual mandate was repealed, health premiums have gone up. All right.
Bernie Sanders.